We move along to a lightweight bout, another preliminary fight here for the World Series of Fighting going down tomorrow night in Las Vegas. Gesias Cavalcante, a 16-6 fighter, taking on 18-5 TJ O'Brien. Cavalcante coming off a knockout loss to 20-7 Luis Palomino on June 30th in the state of Florida, while O'Brien coming off a submission win over a 4-6 fighter. Not that impressive record there for Joe Morris on April the 13th of this year in Iowa. O'Brien, 17 of 18 wins via submission with just one decision victory, while Gesias Cavalcante a little bit more spread out, 7 of 16 wins via submission with 5 knockouts and 4 decisions. Cavalcante has lost 6 times in his career, 5 via decision, 1 via knockout. Of course, a knockout coming in his last fight. His decision losses, though, to some very tough fighters: Joachim Hansen, Shinya Aoki, Tatsuya Kawajiri, Josh Thompson, and Isaac Valley Flag, the 5 fighters to have defeated Cavalcante via decision. Cavalcante has nice wins over Bart Palashevsky, Ronnie Yaya, Nam Fan, and Vitor Ribeiro. He's 29 years old. He's from Brazil, but fighting out of Boca Raton, Florida, with that Black Zillions camp. He's been fighting as a pro since 2004 and is currently riding a 2-fight losing streak. His opponent, TJ O'Brien, has lost 5 times, 4 of those via submission and once via knockout. He went 0-2 in the UFC with losses to Paul Kelly and Cole Miller. O'Brien been fighting since 2007. He's just 25 years old, 4 years younger than Cavalcante, and is fighting out of Des Moines, Iowa. O'Brien and Gesias Cavalcante, an interesting fight here. Maybe a little bit tougher to pick. I'm leaning towards Gesias Cavalcante based on what he's done in the past, based on his experience, based on his training camp. I like what I've seen from Jay-Z in the past, but it worries me that he's on a 2-fight losing streak, and he's coming off the first knockout loss of his career. So, Kevin, I'm leaning towards Gesias Cavalcante, but I'm going to look to you to push me in the right direction. What do you think? Is TJ O'Brien going to pull off the upset here, or are you going with Cavalcante?
I'm going with TJ O'Brien to pull off the upset. I think Cavalcante's best days are behind him. Yes, he's with a great training camp with the Black Zillions, and I realize that TJ O'Brien's last opponent was not an impressive opponent in Joe Morris, being a 4-6 fighter. Yes, had a tough run in the UFC. However, Cavalcante, in my opinion, has not looked at great in his last 5 bouts, and was pulling off some victories here and there, but on that 2-fight losing skid, I think that there's maybe some problems with Cavalcante. I think his best days are behind him. I picked him to lose that last fight he had in Bellator, and he did. So, in Strikeforce rather, against Valley Flag, and I think that TJ O'Brien will take him tomorrow night.
All right, I'm going to go against that. I'm going to go with Gesias Cavalcante. I don't think TJ O'Brien has what it takes to beat Gesias Cavalcante. I don't think that he's on the level of a Joachim Hansen or a Shinya Aoki. And I think that the fact that O'Brien has won 17 of 18 via submission works against him because Gesias Cavalcante, he's lost 6 times, but he's never been submitted, and he's got some really good groundwork. And at the same time, I think his hands are better with 5 wins via knockout, where you look at O'Brien, he's been knocked out before by Paul Kelly in the UFC in 2010, but he's never won via knockout. So I'm going to give it to Gesias Cavalcante based off the fact that he's never been tapped out. That's how O'Brien wins, and he's got knockout power, and that's how O'Brien has lost as well. So I'm going to go with Gesias Cavalcante to pick up the win, either by submission or a knockout, but I like Jay-Z to win. We move right along to Dustin Jacoby taking on Dave Branch. Branch 10-3, Jacoby 8-2. Branch is coming off a TKO loss to Anthony Rumble Johnson on May 25th in Kansas City, Kansas, while Dustin Jacoby is coming off a TKO victory over a 7-1. He was 7-0 at the time, but Jacoby put an end to that, giving him his first loss, beating Tim Williams on August 24th in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Branch, 10 wins, 4 of those via knockout with 3 submissions and 3 decisions, while Jacoby has 8 victories, 7 via knockout, and 1 submission. Very impressive, finishing percentage there for Dustin Jacoby. He's lost twice in his career, has Jacoby, once via submission. Chris Camozzi submitting him on January 28th of this year for the UFC on Fox 2, while he lost a decision to Clifford Starks in 2010, also in the UFC. Jacoby went 0-2 in the UFC, but has won 2 in a row since his release from the promotion. He's actually never lost outside of the UFC, 8-0 outside the UFC and 0-2 within that octagon. He's only 24 years old and has been fighting for just 2 years, made his pro debut in November 2010. Jacoby fighting out of Springfield, Illinois. His opponent, Dave Branch, fighting out of New York City. He's originally from Charlotte, North Carolina, but he's a Renzo Gracie-trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt out of New York City. He's 30 years old, made his pro debut in 2007. Branch has 4 wins via knockout. He has 3 losses, though. 1 via knockout. Gerald Harris, you might remember, a wicked slam back at UFC 116 that knocked out Dave Branch. He was submitted by Husimar Paul Harris in the UFC in 2011, and he's lost once via decision, with wins in the UFC over Rich Antonito and Thomas Derwal. Branch went 2-2 in the UFC. So Branch actually picked up a couple wins in the UFC, while Jacoby went 0-2 in the promotion. This is an interesting middleweight contest. I like this fight very much. I think it could go either way. I'm leaning towards Dave Branch in this one, based on the fact that he's got knockout power, and the losses that he's incurred in his career have been to some very, very tough fighters. I mean, submitted by Husimar Paul Harris, who hasn't been submitted by Husimar Paul Harris. I'm going to go with Dave Branch in this one.
I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going with Dustin Jacoby on this. I like Jacoby's knockout power, the fact that when it comes to winning fights, he finishes fights. Yes, I believe that Dave Branch has fought a few tougher opponents during his UFC tenure. However, I do believe that beating Rich Antonito and Thomas Derwal were impressive. But of course, when he stepped up in competition against Paul Harris, he was unsuccessful. Nonetheless, I like Dustin Jacoby in this. He's riding a 2-fight win streak. Branch is coming off a TKO loss to Anthony Johnson, which actually I believe was a light heavyweight bout.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I like Jacoby in this.
All right, so Kevin likes Dustin Jacoby. I'm going to go with Dave Branch.